So just a reminder to everybody that this meeting is being live streamed and recorded. Tonight with us, along with the board, we have the town staff with us. We have Billy Cooksey, manager of the Parks and Recreation Department, Eric Henschel, Parks and Rec Operations Supervisor, and Cody Bird is presenting tonight. He's our Town of Wellington Planning Director. So for roll call, if everyone can state their first and last name, Laura Lynn Bockelman,
Aaron McConnell, Joe Burke,
Jesse Roper, Sarah Brown.
So we are missing John Evans, Robert Sossman, and that's it for tonight. Oh, and our trustee liaison is Rebecca Daly. She is not here yet, but she will be. Okay, great. I don't see anybody here that would be here for public comment on non-agenda items. Do we have anybody online? Okay, great. Did everybody have a chance to review the minutes? Is there any edits or things that need fixed?
Not that I saw.
Okay.
I don't think so.
Do we want to make a motion to approve the minutes from August 21st, 2024?
I will make a motion to approve the minutes from August 2024.
Second. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. So diving into action items, Joe, welcome.
thank you very much. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Joe. I got accepted to the PROST board.
Nice.
Joe, can you just tell them a few things about why you wanted to join the board? And
Absolutely. My family has some deep rooted history with community service. Growing up in Batavia, Illinois, we would do as much as we could. My mom sat on the board of trustees for the town, sat on it for quite a long time. And now she runs the Batavia Women's Club. So I just wanted to be able to give back to my community, just like as my family has as well.
thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, welcome.
Welcome.
Thanks for
Feels nice to be here.
jumping in to help the town out. We appreciate it.
Of course. I'm really excited about it.
Okay.
It's gonna be fun.
So do you think?
So Cody,
Yeah, we've kind of bounced around multiple times and kind of pushed Cody off from coming in for various reasons over the last few months. And we've kind of got together, Cody and I, over a couple different things that have parks and trails and all sorts of planning that are going on within the town, but thought it's a good time as you all kind of have new members coming in and kind of a fresh review of things for the members who have been here, just to meet Cody. My experience with Cody, he's been absolutely amazing, a huge resource for myself as one of the newer employees on the leadership team within the town. And it's fantastic to work with Cody. We run into each other and end up talking for 10 minutes, and sometimes we sit down and talk for an hour, and we wish we could more often. Our plan is to take a bike ride around town at some point and really go over things eye on, like we kind of do as a pro sport every once in a while. So maybe at the next one of those, we'll have Cody come to that. That'd be a really good idea. Hey, spark some new ideas tonight. But my thought was to just bring him in to speak a little bit about, trails, trail connectivity, kind of speak to us about new developments and how that could impact PROST as a board, as well as parks and trails and our recreation programming, as well as, if you guys have any questions, maybe some stuff a little bit about impact fees, but he's got some stuff to present. So without further ado.
Awesome. Well, thanks for the introduction, Billy.
Yeah.
I am Cody Bird. I'm the town's planning director. I've been here in Wellington for nearly 7 years. Hard to believe. I know there's a comment earlier about showing our age, and I've been here for 7 years now, which is crazy, but it's been good. Just to give you a little bit of background, as the town's planning director, I oversee our long-range planning, our current plans, our development activities. I also have the building division, code enforcement, and possibly business support and economic development coming soon. So I wear a lot of hats. I keep myself fairly busy, and I interface with all of our town departments, divisions, and operations on a pretty regular basis. Our team provides a lot of customer service support at the front counter for building permits, contractor licensing, business licensing and a lot of things in between. So we have a pretty dynamic group, but we love it because we get to come and do fun things like this and mission everything else. So I appreciate you guys letting me be here with you tonight. I've spoken with the PROST in every phase of its naming history. But it has been a while, so I appreciate being back. Most of you, or those of you that know me, know that I made a joke earlier that I could filibuster this meeting, and I'm not gonna do that. I did come with a couple of specific key points, and I wanna leave some room too for time for you to ask questions of me. I don't wanna pretend to know that I have everything that you wanna hear. So I want to give you some high level information and then provide some time for some discussion. A couple things I wanted to kick off in these first two. Billy and I have been kind of working collaboratively on, so I might poke at Billy here too and let him weigh in on some things also. We have been working over the last couple of years with the Northern Colorado Regional Trail groups. We've been working with the Front Range Trail, particularly along the east side of I-25, going south, tying into Fort Collins and Timnath for a couple of years, even conceptual alignments there and tie-ins to Wellington. So we've made some progress on that front. We know there's still a long ways to go, but we do think it's important to highlight that we are a part of Northern Colorado, and we do want to tie in with our trail connectivity at some point. It's in our master plan. It's in our future land use map, for at least we planners draw with crayons. We know that there's going to be an alignment somewhere here, but the exact path and engineering of that has to be designed and figured out as we go. But we do, you want to scroll down to the kind of the south east corner there. Yeah, perfect. So you guys know through your work of our trail system through town, and kind of ends with the parking lot at Wellville Park. The Front Range Trail generally is intended to follow Box Elder Creek, south and tying into Timnath and Fort Collins. So we know that that's going to happen. We also identify in our planning documents that our trail system would eventually continue north. It currently ends at Wellington Community Park, and we would envision it continuing on north and beyond, with a potential spur going west, following a historic foot trail, Native American trail there. So we know those are big picture. We did recently work with the property owner here for Country Lane Acres annexation. And when they divided this property into two parts to sell to a new owner, we also talked to them about dedicating the land along Box Elder Creek for open space to preserve that for that trail alignment and corridor. So we do have that satisfied. No trail existing, but we certainly wanted to secure that opportunity for that trail alignment someday. So just one of the simple examples of how we make incremental progress on those bigger picture things. We've also, Billy and I have been communicating with the Regional Trails group. We're going to actually be a booth exhibitor at the Northern, what's the group called, Billy?
Northern Colorado Trails Summit, I believe is what it's called. The summit is called that, so yes.
It's hosted by Fort Collins, I think was the initiator of this, but highlighting how these northern communities can work together to achieve those longer range visions. There are grant opportunities available through various funding sources, but you aren't competitive to get grants if you don't have a plan in place and support from the community through implementation steps like planning and securing right of way and things like that. So we are continually working towards those objectives, and we're excited to be invited to participate in this trail summit. So we'll be there later this month.
Yep, the 26th.
Yep.
Correct?
Yep, that's right. And I don't know if you had intended to go over that itinerary tonight with the PROST, or if you wanted to do that in a different way.
Our itinerary for what we're going to present there.
Yeah, just kind of highlighting a lot of what we kind of do here, and our long range, our comprehensive plan identifies the potential trail routes. I've penciled some possible alignment opportunities, I guess you'd call them, to connect along the railroad and Giddings Road to tie into the north side of Fort Collins, to start to pitch those ideas where it's really only 2 mile gap between where Fort Collins trail system ends and where ours picks up. So like, that's a small gap when you're talking about things. So trying to help move things like that closer to the completion stages where we can actually secure funding. If we can get Larimer County and Fort Collins to say, yeah, we agree with that, let's do that.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, and we've sat at the table with all of those parties that actually came up about 3 months ago.
Mhm.
Does that sound about right?
Yeah, probably so.
Something like that, up here, and asked a lot of questions of us just because they really didn't know where we were headed. So like, I'm not gonna say that kind of kicked us all off. I know there's been a ton of work for many years on giving our comprehensive plan and our ideas, but I think that was really eye-opening to them to kind of understand that, you know, we're not just a little town up here, but we also we do want to connect. We want to draw people up. We want to continue the progress with growing downtown and trails and connectivity with a transportation master plan. All that kind of stuff aligns. And I think some of what they thought or had, you know, maybe preconceptions about, they're like, oh, wow, okay. We started talking about the regional trail over on the east side, and they were extremely excited that Cody had already talked to RDEC about that kind of stuff, and they had on their side. So there are a lot of things that I think weren't necessarily spoken between the 2 or 3 different entities actually making progress. So now we can kind of hopefully put them together. Is that, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm speaking correctly there?
Yep.
And being invited to this trail summit, I think was directly aligned with the fact that we had met with them, and they were like, okay, well, we need to get them on board because we're going north, they're coming south, we all want to go east, we all want to go west, so.
And that's a consistent theme in a lot of my circles. I find myself repeatedly saying, I just met with the Fort Collins Board of Realtors yesterday, and I said, don't forget about Wellington. We're up here in northern Colorado too. We're a part of your region. Come and visit us. And then when they do, they go, wow, we didn't realize there were so many cool things going on. It's like, yeah, you do have to go a little bit out of your way to get here. But we are here and we are excited to be a part of the region.
But if we connect better, it's not that far, really.
Exactly.
I mean, it really isn't. The 2 miles is just, it's almost mind boggling that it's only a very short 2 miles. A lot of work will go into closing that gap or spanning those trails or connectivity, however we want to look at it. But it's not that far.
Larimer County's part of all that.
They are, yeah, and they have a couple different planning groups that kind of overlap spheres on some of these efforts, but Zach Weeby has been involved heavily in the trail planning piece of that and the Larimer County open space component. We've met with Zach with RDEC specifically. We've gone out and walked possible routes through their facility, and they're excited about it. They're, you know, as one of the primary property owners and stakeholders in that Front Range Trail corridor. A lot of people would view that as gosh, we're never gonna get through there, but to the contrary, it's in line with their mission and vision to connect those things, and so they're actually a proponent of it as a supporter. Here's what we think would work for us. They have a few key concerns for some of their operational needs where they don't want, you know, public and bicyclists and other things interfering with their livestock and whatnot, but that they said we're open to, we can construct fences and manage that. So they're a big proponent and would take down a big chunk of that trail connection. So it's great to have that level of support from all the key players in that conversation. So I'll pivot a little bit. If anyone has any questions on trails, I'll absolutely stick around and take additional questions too, but I don't want to spend your whole meeting time. Another thing I wanted to kind of touch on, and again, Billy's been a helpful piece of this equation too. Laura Lynn came to our one of our meetings early on and did some walk audits with us for Safe Routes to Park. Our Wellington Safe Routes to School nonprofit group applied for and received a $10,000 grant for Safe Routes to Parks. And we worked with that group to utilize those grant funds and technical assistance to build a strategic action plan for safe routes. And it started with the seed money to conduct walk audits of areas around our schools and our parks. We specifically did Wellington Community Park to the iStone campus, including this facility, and south to Centennial Park. So that was kind of the initial study area. A similar effort would be conducted later for Rice and that surrounding area. Some of those are obvious, at least to me. But the benefit of those walk-ons is when you slow down and you look at things, you see it differently than when you drive by or you're in a hurry to drop your kids off at school or what have you. But it was really productive in identifying, these are some of the safer routes and these are the areas that are not so safe. Sidewalk gaps, no ADA accessible ramps, sight vision issues, traffic calming lacking. But we actually utilized that effort to identify some routes that were the safest available currently. And we worked with the Safe Routes Partnership Group to go out and stencil logos on the sidewalks to connect some of those destinations so that for school startup, students knew which path they could take to get to those key destinations. So that was a really successful effort in that kind of grassroots startup type of project. But it also identified an action plan for how we can continue to leverage additional funds for that. Working with the Safe Routes group, we'll probably continue to apply for additional grant funding to help support implementation grants, whereas we have conceptualized a design. They'll help us do the engineering, design, and construction of those facilities through the grant funding process. It's on a 2-year revolving cycle. We probably won't apply this year because of staffing resources and capacity, but looking at the next cycle to apply for that around the iStone campus for significant sidewalk and park improvements.
Which is the next cycle is 2026.
Right, application cycle.
Application cycle,
Yeah,
yes.
the funding cycle would be for fiscal year 27.
Yep.
And construction in that year. So it feels like a long way out, but when you look at the other projects that we still need to complete, it's right here upon us.
Mhm.
But so those things are exciting. The other really fun piece out of that I wanted to highlight, and Billy, you can jump in here because you might have more details on the specific infrastructure side of it. But the Safe Routes group that procured that grant funding was really adamant about trying to make sure that they leverage and help the town as much as they could with that funding. And so they actually got approval to use the remainder of those grant funds to purchase 3 additional bike fix stations to locate along our trail corridors, in addition to the 1 or 2 that
Yep.
Billy's already procured.
So those were on the PROST, we used to call it the wish list. We haven't implemented any of them yet because the first one is going in at Wellville, and that was and is planned on going in with the whole concrete redo for the dock, the ADA dock. But with the Safe Routes to Parks grant, and granting us those bike fix stations, we're probably gonna hopefully use the same concrete contractor, and I'll give you an update on that later. It's on my list to do, but they'll come in and help implement the actual placement of those at the noted places that we spoke about in last year's meeting when it was something that we pushed forward with for the purchase of those. So it's great partnership there coming in and having the collaboration and understanding that it works well for both partners. It satisfied both safety and usability of our parks trails walking system, as well as something that was on PROST. So Safe Routes to Parks kind of it was in the walk audit, and I believe it might have been you and Laurel and Safe Routes to Schools members talking about just certain things that we could do that were on our list to improve that would directly correlate and impact both what we're looking for is PROST as well as the town and that grant. So awesome collaboration. Yeah, really cool. So we should be getting all of those in. I haven't gotten a date from Lowry if she had made those purchases or not. That's something to follow up on, but when we do that, when we put them in, we'll have them at strategic locations. And if you need, I can send that map back out where they're going to go. They are in past meeting minutes. I can also let you guys know what meeting that was, but there's a map that we set as PROST.
That's exciting. A lot of community members are excited to see them come in.
Yeah, it will be exciting. And as part of the Safe Routes to Park grant cycle there, we did a couple of kind of pop-up bike repair clinics to help youth, and they were really well attended. The first couple weren't advertised as well as we had hoped, but the ones that were
Timeline was
advertised.
quick. The timeline was very quick, and
Yeah,
I don't mean to
no, go ahead.
sway you, but I would say with where the grant was and how quickly after the walk audit, it moved forward to an actual, a place where we could all fulfill the grant and safe routes to schools could fulfill the grant. There was a lot of work done. Cody did a ton of work. Trustee Moore, who is the chair of that board right now, she did a ton of work and a lot of collaboration, multiple events. It all got squeezed into a very short time frame, and it seems to be turning out well. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you
No.
off, but I mean,
I agree, it was,
everything
Yeah.
incrementally kind of went better and better. Unfortunately, when they did the stencils on the walks for the first time, it rained that day, so they had to come back and do it again. But Public Works was involved and PSD was involved, so there's really good surrounding resources that we actually got in contact with, and everybody worked together.
no, well said. And the bike fix stations that grant is able to procure. That need was really obvious when we had the clinics, and there were kids coming up, bringing their bikes from simple fixes that we could take care of right there to, man, my bike is really broken, and we're like, we really need you to go to a bike shop to take a look at that. But just the number of kids that were coming through that clearly needed that level of assistance, these bike fix stations will be
Yeah.
great.
And just so everybody knows, they should be set up for all wheel fix stations too. They're not
Oh,
just
yeah.
bike,
Yeah,
they call
good
them
point.
bike
Yeah.
fix stations, but they are made to be all wheel fix stations, hopefully.
So if you'll send that map back out, that would be cool.
Yeah,
Thank you.
okay.
Which map are you?
Oh,
share
we
out
have,
with
the one that we looked at where it just had the locations of what PROST had identified as
Okay.
key cornerstone pieces for where they
Okay.
could go,
Yeah.
to spread them out. Mostly along the trail system. I mean, really quickly, just, there will be one at Wellville. We could revisit it too. We had talked about putting one along the trails near Harvest Park somewhere, but there'll definitely be one at Centennial. There'll definitely be one at Wellington Community Park. And then the other locations were kind of up in the air because we didn't know if we wanted to do one of them or three of them, but with the influx of them from the grant, we should be able to match everything we had on the map,
Awesome.
south to north at every key location. So you don't have to go too much further than you would need to be able to walk quickly to get it fixed.
Awesome. So I'm gonna jump ahead because I want to be respectful of time. So just to give you a highlight, a couple, the two other things that are kind of more like 2.5s, but I want to talk about upcoming land development projects and how parks and trails tie into that. Talk about kind of some of the opportunities that are on the horizon for that. I'd love to also solicit any feedback that you have, like, hey, Cody, have you thought of that? Because sometimes I don't, and I love getting feedback from these groups. The other thing I wanted to touch on, just so you know what's coming, is impact fees. I know that's been a topic that has come up in the past, and I've spoken to it before, but it's been a while and there's new membership. So I wanted to revisit that, what impact fees are, how they're collected, how they're used. And we also have another component that's fee in lieu of land dedication. And so through our development processes, we typically require the development to dedicate the land that is park and open space. And then the town is usually responsible for actually fee in lieu land. If we don't think it's to have a park there that's going to be useful, or other than that, can also give us the money, we'll agree on the dollar amount and we'll have that available to purchase parkland in the future. So that's what I'm gonna be speaking to next. And then if there's other topics that you want to hear about, I'll field all questions. So a couple quick development updates, and I was gonna ask Eric too, are you plugged directly into the monitor? Could I share the monitor screen with you? Sweet. Thank you. So you've probably seen some of the activities underway. Sage Meadows second subdivision is along Highway 1. That development project. Oh, that's interesting.
Tweaking out over here, Cody.
Yeah. It's not even showing the. Maybe, yeah. So anyhow, so I'm kind of navigating this, Sage Meadows second subdivision is along Highway 1. You can see the, there we go, that was for safe routes to the Parks grant. But you can see the construction activity, from the highway. Some of you may live in Sage Meadows subdivision and know all about it. But that was, there's no park, this isn't Sage Meadows, sorry, I don't have a map of this one. But that was one of the neighborhoods that for that phase of development, we didn't require parkland. We required trails through there. They still have open space for storm drainage, and open space requirements, but we required the trails connect to Viewpoint Park because we already had a community park in that vicinity and it was close by. Over the years, the town's philosophy has kind of changed where it's really difficult to maintain a lot of small pocket parks. And so we've kind of shifted our philosophy to neighborhoods are still required to provide pocket parks for amenities for the subdivision, but we're saying that can be HOA owned and maintained because we don't have the resources to go to every single little park to do all that and all the play equipment that is required there. So we've shifted that to let the HOAs manage those. But we did require that fee in lieu of land dedication for Sage Meadows second subdivision. So we did take the dollar value for what would have been a land dedication and we hold that in reserve for future park purchases down the road. We've not identified which park would warrant that consideration yet, and it wasn't a big dollar amount, like people think it might be millions, it's not, it's like $75,000. But the idea would be that strategically over time, if we take that fee in lieu or portion for fee in lieu, we'll build a big enough nest egg to where we can buy larger parks in the future where we anticipate regional parks. And our future land use map identified a future regional park north of town, kind of utilizing some floodplain area there. We haven't spoken to any individual property owners about that because we don't know exactly what the needs are, but we just put a really big circle on the map that said somewhere here, because of the connections, the locations, the amenities and the traffic patterns, a regional park would make sense somewhere here. So we're starting to stockpile funds and reserves so that we could have opportunities to make those adjustments when we get there. So that's Sage Meadows' second update. Another one is Saddleback subdivision. This is on the east side of town, near the south end at County Road 60, GW Bush Avenue. That project also did not have a park dedication. It's very close to Park Meadows Park and Wellville Park, and we required sidewalk trail connections from that neighborhood to the existing parks. So they met all the open space requirements. They have the pocket park where they would have community center, clubhouse type of thing for their amenities and tie into our other systems. We're talking with the developer and builders on that one. There's a possibility they break ground this fall aiming for building permits in spring of next year. We'll see if the timelines work out, but that is on the radar as our development project.
And for those of you that weren't on the board at the time, they came in and spoke with us last year and got some with Cody, and I believe that's the last time he was here, although he only spoke directly towards Saddleback. But we did some advising, or the PROST committee did some advising based on our recommendations for trails, for lightings, for benches, those kind of things, kind of our standards for any installations that we would do. It was I believe the developer himself that came in and sat in at that meeting. So just to reiterate, that will not be a town park. That will be something that is owned and maintained by the HOA, but we still have standards across for amenities such as that. So we suggested to them. We also made suggestions such as we're on the PROST list on the east side. We always said it would be great if we had a tennis court or a basketball court. I think it was identified as a basketball court. So we made those suggestions. It's not something that they necessarily have to do, but they would come to us for that information as it was gathered in previous studies by much more previous parks boards than my iteration of it. So just another update for them.
That's on the south of GW Bush.
No, it's the south end of town, but it's north of GW Bush. So it would be between Bush and Reagan. So Ronald
Okay.
Reagan currently just has a stub, dead
Yeah,
end there. That roadway will be continued to the east, and that
Okay.
ties into the north end of the subdivision.
Okay, so it will be behind Park, the Meadows.
The Meadows,
The
yes, east-
Park Meadows is the northern end?
yes,
Yeah,
yep, it'll be east of the Meadows.
Okay, perfect.
yeah, exactly, so.
So just south of like Wellville,
Uh,
right?
north.
South and north.
Yeah, northeast of Wellville.
I'm directionally challenged.
So, you're good. So here's I-25, here's Wellville Park with the pond.
Yep,
This is Reagan, this is Bush.
Yep, got
This
it.
is the Saddleback subdivision,
that's
and
what I
you can
was
see the lot.
Okay.
layout.
Yep.
So we did work with the developer. This is where they'd have their neighborhood clubhouse and amenities here on this larger area. This is all open space. This is stormwater detention, but we required trail connectivity tying the ends of this park, or the ends of the development back
That's
into the
nice.
public trail
Okay.
system.
Would the trail be ours or theirs?
The objective would be that it is on HOA property, but accessible to the public.
Sweet.
So, and Billy made a great point, which I kind of glossed over. Whenever we have a new subdivision development plan, it goes through quite a rigorous process. It goes through first starting with planning and zoning. Is it identified as the right type of development for the area where it's proposed? It would go through all of our protocols to make sure that it's in alignment with the town's vision and goals for the area. We have a whole lot of technical criteria details that we go through. It goes through engineering review, storm drainage utilities, you name it. But one of the steps in that process is we have to review the park and open space proposal to make sure that it's in alignment with our requirements. And we also bring that to the PROST board for review and feedback. So, and that, I'm glad Billy brought it up because we did do that for Saddleback. It's been a little while, so I forgot about it. But we bring that, all of our new development proposals to the PROST for that kind of blush. Is this consistent with our park and trail master plan? What are the needs in that area? Can we identify how to make that more suitable to the town's needs or the town's vision? So you'll be looking to, hopefully you're looking forward to me coming back soon with those proposals for the next project that I want to talk about. So I'll do a quick plug here too. If I can find my tabs. For anyone who's interested, we've added a neat little tool on our town's website. It's on the homepage and it's right here called Development Map. This is here all the time and we update it regularly as new information comes in. But it's just town-wide. It just shows where the projects that are in review are located and some details about them and where you can learn more about it. It doesn't tell you everything, but we had so many questions like, where is that going? Why didn't I know about this? Well, we tried to help a little bit and put some information out there. So just to help you navigate, you can select any of the projects that are currently in the review process. You can click on them here. So I'm going to click on Sage Farms annexation and it zooms you right into it. Gives you a little bit more details of what's going on, shows the location, the boundaries of that project. So to help orient anyone who's interested in what's going on and any status that's going on. So, oops, I don't want the town boundary limits. Columbine. So on this one, you can see it's under construction building permits. So that just kind of orient you with what's going on. And you can also just zoom in on the map to see all the details for other projects happening. But I wanted to give you an update on Sage Farms annexation. So this property here is approximately 300 acres. It was recently annexed into the town of Wellington in January of this year. It's 300 acres is big. If you guys, when you drive by here on the highway, it probably passes pretty quick. If you get out and you walk this, along GW Bush or anywhere around here, you'll realize this is a lot bigger than it looks on paper. So as such, we've approved this as a phased development plan. We did a planned unit development district overlay. And if I can zoom in a little bit on that, this is oriented not true to the world. Well, actually, I guess it would be, no, it is on my screen, not up there. But so just to orient you, this is, north is not up in this instance, north is to the right. This is GW Bush Avenue, your railroad, or your railroad tracks and Highway 1. So this is the conceptual lot layout for this subdivision.
Yeah.
It's a lot. This will be phased in. The developer is currently working on plans to submit for phase 1 plat, which would likely be all of this kind of north half. But they would just do that as the plat to establish the lot lines, the road layout, the utility connections. But they would be looking at doing a phased development where they would bring on probably the commercial piece for kind of a neighborhood corner center, maybe one of the multifamily projects and a portion of the single family. They'd also be staging their stormwater detention facility depending on how their phasing plan looks. So it might seem scary to see that many lots, but this is going to be a phased development project approved over multiple approvals, multiple years.
Where's the park?
Great question. So this map is a little hard to see some of the trail connectivities, but the green is generally open space. There are some trails. This is conceptual, but a big part of it was making sure that the trails are going to tie in and connect to the existing trail system through Sage Meadows subdivision. And as I scroll over here a little bit further, this area here, these are detention ponds. They look blue. They won't look exactly like that. This is conceptual, but they're just showing volumetric kind of, this is where it would go. And this is conceptual, it's not final. But so this area here was identified as the open space area. Kind of naturally, it's where the water is going to drain to meet open space. If we grade ponds correctly with flat bottoms, they can be used for programming. So that was the envision for this.
Like viewpoint.
Yep, viewpoint park. And I'll just highlight real quickly, this South County Road 58, southern boundary of this development project, there's a lot of commercial proposed here. We've been talking to UC Health about a potential future medical campus here. Size and location, everything to be determined, but there's a big drive to get that commercial aspect to help promote the retail service industry needs that our community is lacking currently, and we need to have a place to put them. So part of our planning process is, if we're not dedicating commercial spaces, we're not going to get commercial. So that was a big part of this project, to make sure that we've got opportunities for that in the future. So being located where it's at, we know that this project is a few years down the road before we get this. This is a 34-acre open space and park dedication. 34 acres is hard to imagine. Wellington Community Park is about 8, I think, 8 to 10.
It's a little bigger than that.
Is it?
Yeah. I think
Maybe it's 13. Oh, maybe that's right.
13.5.
Okay, I'll go with 13 because that does sound closer to recollection. But that's a pretty big park, and this is 34 acres, more than 3 times that size. So this was kind of sticking with that theme of, we want to have regional facilities that we can make a significant, meaningful impact in, instead of spreading it out all over the place. But 34 acres is still really big. So also conceptual, but we had some questions from the Board of Trustees when this was going through approval process. And there was definitely kind of a challenge to understand exactly how big that was. So we asked them to just conceptualize what would fit within 34 acres and still meet the stormwater drainage requirements for this development. And you can see what they came up with for sizing the fields. You've got 2 full-size soccer fields, multiple smaller soccer fields, swimming pool, clubhouse, tennis courts, pickleball, baseball, additional programming in the flat pond. This is a lot of park space.
That's like 3 more employees.
This becomes the town park space or the HOA park space?
This would be town. public
Yeah,
park
because it's
space.
large enough, it's, yeah.
Then
Yeah,
it
this would be,
comes over.
yes.
Okay.
yep, this would be regional park.
Yeah, this would be our
Really big enough for this town.
regional park.
As long
Yeah,
as it
like
has a lot, like in a-
35 acres. Have you ever been to Fossil Creek Community Park? It's, give or
Cody,
take.
can you share a little bit about timeline? Like what is the timeline for this look like?
Yeah, so I didn't bring my crystal ball. I know I can answer this question a lot. Totally is. But just aside, we know that this development project is a big project. This is, a lot of communities our size don't tackle projects this big because they don't have willing developers to stick with it long enough to figure out how to make it work. Working with Sage Homes, they've been a really great community partner. When I pitched this idea to them we're thinking too small, all of our subdivisions kind of just, we're closing off the old farm, 4 sides, and they don't really interrelate to each other. I said, we need to think bigger and master plan the entire community for that area so that we have good road connectivity, that we don't have dead ends, we don't have cul-de-sacs that don't go anywhere. We want our neighborhoods to integrate, not back up to each other with a wall. And so Sage Homes was very receptive to this idea. They worked with me on the commercial aspects and everything else. But it is gonna be a big project, so it's anticipated to be built out within 20 to 25 years. And so that is a long time frame in a development picture. Some of that could be accelerated with good market conditions. It could also slow down with poor market conditions, economy busts and things like that. So that's where the crystal ball gets a little murky. But going back to the other larger layout, one of the things that I can tell you with relationship to the park, because of the infrastructure is readily available for the northern half. The southern half has to go, particularly the sewer, has to go north to go under the railroad, under I-25 to get to the water reclamation facility. And because of that, the north end is going to develop first. The south end is going to require a lift station, which is another big infrastructure piece that it would be some portion of public and private partnership to build that to facilitate the development. And those details aren't yet decided. We know that the park component would come later in those stages. It wouldn't be readily available right away. But to the contrary of that kind of negative aspect of the timeline, the positive side was with 34 acres. We actually approached this developer with an alternate proposal and said, gosh, we really would like something sooner. And we've identified a strategic piece of ground that we think would be very helpful for the town. Would you go ahead and go buy that parcel for us? And we'll offset a portion of this dedication for open space in consideration of the strategic piece of ground that we would like to procure to be able to develop it in a more immediate basis. So we pitched that idea to the developer and to the board of trustees, and they all said, yes, that's a great idea. Go ahead and pursue that. And so the zoning map might have been a better one for this, but I don't have it handy. I'm gonna go back to here. So what we actually proposed to the developer was we'll trade 13 acres down here that we won't have access to for quite a while. And what we would like to do is acquire this 13 acres here that's already adjacent to our trail system. It's in the center of our town. In our 2015 Park and Trail Master Plan, that plan identified that this area near Ronald Reagan would be a future location for a recreation center. And ironically, even though we identified this could be a future recreation center, the town approved a development of townhomes there that effectively leaves no room for a recreation center.
Cause that's Harvest Park you're talking about right there,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Right. But the 2015 Park and Trail Master Plan also identified that this is the location that was intended and desired, but they knew it wasn't big enough and additional acquisitions would be necessary to fulfill that project goal. So we said, well, what's immediately adjacent to those facilities and available? And we went and we had the developer procure that property.
Okay.
So we're currently working with them to identify in our development approval process how to facilitate that exchange. Basically trading 13 acres here for 13 acres down in the prime area for their subdivision where they could develop it for homes, business, and other things. And we would let them have that 13 back for this 13. So this would be more immediately available to us in a short-term basis, consistent with the location goals of the Park and Trail Master Plan. I really like it for town facilities because it's super central to our town, providing convenient access to all, or as convenient access as we can for all of our users. It's got great connectivity to our trails. It's on an arterial roadway for vehicular traffic access and visibility. So certainly it was a stretch goal, but we're close to making that happen. The town staff is currently programming in our capital improvement plan a feasibility analysis and funding analysis for a recreation center or community center. Could have office space, could have meeting facilities and other things too. Final design, everything to be determined
In that
But-
space,
in this space.
but a skate park would fit there too.
Absolutely.
Or a pool.
Well, that would be in the community, in the community center potentially, yes. Yeah, yeah. The reason that we don't just call it a rec center for multiple different reasons. We know our facilities are lacking for all municipal services across, we do yoga here, but we do our board meetings here and so, the library is getting outdated, so our ability to provide for the whole community in one usable location. The other thing about a community center is if you name it a community center, build it as a community center, the availability for funding grows drastically across federal and local grants, state grants than it does if you just call it and only use it as a rec center. We've talked there's tons of different things we could put in there, partnering with if one of the medical companies comes in, partnering with them to do some sort of rehab center there, being able to potentially do, providing a daycare option, Boys and Girls Club, we have no clue what it could turn into, but definitely would have a rec center type portion to it. As well as like a community center and some offices so that we're doing our meetings there, leadership that have more space to come in and bring people in like we want to, and not just our one community room we're always fighting over. So the idea is to build out basically for the future of growth for our entire town within that community center. And this location for me, I absolutely love this because anytime we can, if you look at the yellow space there, I hate to use the word monopolize because it kind of has a negative connotation. But if you look at that space, basically from Jefferson all the way to the underpass to Wellville, and then through to where the regional trail system is, that is pretty much on either side of the Box Elder Creek would then be town-owned land. So then we can actually use it to develop in the way that we would want. There's only very few small pieces in there that wouldn't be. So I think it's a key piece to not only bringing, Cody and I were looking at the map yesterday, if you put a dot on that, granted, it's not quite a circle, more of an oval, but if you take that space right there and draw a circle or an oval to capture our growth management area, it's almost right in the middle. So the services that we would provide in the center is really, there's no other space in our town that has the ability to do that.
Yeah. Another element that was important for me from a planning perspective for equity, diversity, and inclusion, which is one of our planning goals for all of our communities. Old Town, because it has been built out over the years and was developed under a different standard, there's not a lot of space in Old Town to add new amenities. It's full. And Old Town has a lot of our housing options are more affordable, naturally occurring affordable housing options, just because of age of structure, the size of the lots, different development pattern. But they don't have a lot of amenities available to them. And so this location was also very close to Old Town to help serve an under amenitized portion of our community. And I think if you look, even though the 2015 Park and Trail Master Plan is a little bit dated, there were some big gaps in the center of town on the heat maps for amenities, trail connections and other things. And so this helps fill a big gap that was identified as early as 2015.
Yeah, and by far the closest we could get to any of the schools as well. It's pretty much centrally, obviously
Oh,
Rice is closer. But the new middle school, high school is close enough. And yeah.
Right in the middle of the triangle.
And we know too, as we build out, obviously, people are gonna come in, but they do want to try to move as close to school. So as these, families that would be using a community center, I should say, would be affected just as well as the people that are underserved with the amenities that we don't have for the people downtown.
Is anyone excited?
Yeah,
So excited.
I think it's great that that's been a focus and has been pushed to make sure that that's happening.
Yeah, and you know, when Cody was talking about this before the proposal was made to the board by the developers and Cody as far as the potential for the land exchange. You know, we had talked multiple times, and for me, a town this big, 35-acre park is massive to take care of. So, you know, how much of that is actually usable versus how much can we actually fully program and take care of? Like, I'm not even joking that that's two full-time, 3 full-time employees. If we're gonna do a community center somewhere, we're talking about 20 more full-time employees, right? And all the janitorial crew, all the stuff that goes with that. So being able to kind of package all that up and not really, I mean, make it benefit us is, I feel like is kind of a win-win.
Well, and it also addresses a need, knowing that that other park is a ways out, you know, our community has those needs
Absolutely.
now.
Yeah.
And we're looking at addressing something within kind of a timely manner, which I think
Yeah.
will help people feel like there's movement in that area.
I hope so, and I, maybe along that same vein too, Sarah, there's a component of when you're looking to apply for funding for design or construction of these big facilities, the first thing they ask you is, where's it going? And we couldn't answer that question, so we really didn't have any way to go and make any application, and that was a big weight on my heart was, man, we would like to pursue other opportunities to help accelerate some of these programs, but we don't have a place to put it. And this gives us an opportunity now. We know what the future is gonna look like. Now we can start pursuing design efforts, grant funding and other opportunities. And we expect this will be, at least I expect this will be a phased project. We know that there's a lot of opportunity, and which element comes first. I think the skate park or wheel park is a big priority.
I live
And-
right.
Right over the Union Trail connection, right over the.
Is that something that would be on the table for getting the skate park over in that location as well as everything else we talked about?
It absolutely would be, and I'm not here to say that it's this or it's that. I think those are community decisions that we have to work together to find the right path. But we know what some of the needs are. I've heard for probably as long as I've been here, that the skate park wants to be more than what it exists today. And I know there's been a lot of effort and great effort to make it as good as it is. But it doesn't have more room to grow, and it doesn't maybe have the right amenities. And if we procured a grant to expand on its current location, we're still limited to the footprint. So if we have a location where we can dream a little bigger, then we can absolutely do that. But I'm not here to say that skate park goes here versus here, or this needs to be that. Like, we know that there's more to it than just simply, okay, now they've got it, now start throwing things in there. There have to be more conversations, but this group is a big driver of making those recommendations for what that's gonna look like, what those amenities look like, and how to design it.
That's great. A side note on that, you know, when I think the other piece that's really cool about that location is when we talked about the downtown construction and making kind of that is it Third Street that you were talking about, Cody, as kind of being the main connection to our downtown. You're not that far off. You know, Third is what? One
Right.
street over.
Yeah,
And so it kind of lines up with that straight up and down through the heart of our community.
Yeah, and
And
yeah, sorry.
I think that is neat to see. That
Yeah.
piece.
absolutely. So it is exciting. I'm still dreaming on this. I hope that you guys will share your dreams with me to help craft that community vision, so that we can start advancing some of these goals. Okay, so maybe that's a great segue. The last piece I was gonna talk about today, and of course I'll answer any questions. I'm going to unplug this because I'm done with it unless we wanna go back to the maps. Thank you, Eric. Okay, I brought you a fun handout.
Homework.
It's all text, so it's not particularly exciting. It's
Great.
It's so pretty.
Yeah. I put this together to help,
Yeah.
you know, as to be a tool, because I know I answer these questions for other groups as well. But I just put this together based on some information I've used in the past regarding the topic of LLRs. So, oh, you guys are good. I never knew you guys would be so excited over 2 pages of text. And I'm not gonna read through this with you, but I'll kind of highlight what it is, and we can have a discussion around impact fees. So when the town goes through a development process, we do assess what were referred to as exactions. It's a one-time fee leveraged against a property or development proposal to cover costs for community facilities that the development wouldn't otherwise provide. There's a lot of rules around impact fees. They're very, very tight. It's strictly outlined in state statutes, and we have to adhere to a whole lot of guidelines, and that's where a lot of this comes from. So I attempted to put together, not too succinctly, but the basics around impact fees. So what I want to highlight is it's a one-time fee. We don't keep going back to the drawing board. It has to meet certain criteria, like it has to be a community facility, or a community service. So we can't exact an impact fee for something that is not a town service. We can't do an impact fee for, you name it, supporting the local carnival. I mean, that's not an impact fee. Impact fee, it has to be capital facilities. It has to have a lifespan of 5 years or longer. And it has to, well, there's a whole lot of other guidelines. Let me keep it simple. So we have impact fees for roads, for road expansion. We don't use impact fees for road maintenance. That's not eligible. It has to be new infrastructure. We have impact fees for parks and trails. We have impact fees for water and sewer. We have an impact fee for library. And I've probably missed one, but you get the sense. Impact fees have been used to help fund a lot of the plant expansion projects that you have seen for our water and wastewater. But it wasn't completely impact fee funded. A lot of the changes to the plants were operational. So equipment that was out of date and had to be replaced, had to be upgraded to meet compliance standards, and those operational costs come from utility fees. So those plant expansion projects had to be really dialed in, because we can't just carte blanche go, oh, let's raise the impact fees to pay for that. It has to meet the state criteria for what impact fee can be used for. So I like to use a couple simple rules too for impact fees. This is well documented in land use law. I could talk all day, so I won't, but there has to be a rational nexus, meaning that the impact fee collected has to be related to the service that you're providing. So we collect an impact fee for roads, and it's because we have to expand the roadway because the development is creating additional traffic that's impacting our roadways, and we have to provide for that. That's where the rational nexus is directly related to traffic expansion as a result of continued growth and more traffic on the roads. There also has to be a rough proportionality. We can't say, gosh, this road's going to be $40 million, so we're going to charge that development $200,000 per lot. That's not a rational, or it's not a rough proportionality. It has to be roughly proportionate to the increment of impact generated by that particular property. So if any of you bought a home recently, or a new subdivision home recently, the road impact fee's been $1,700 for quite a while. Your developer charges that to you when you buy your house and you close on your mortgage. But that $1,700 is what was identified as the increment that a single family residence has impact on the town-wide road networks. So we're going to be evaluating that too, to see if it needs an update. I think it does. But the rough proportionality is that it has to be fair to the end user paying for that cost. Our parks impact fee is $1,000 per single family residence. We don't assess a park impact fee on commercial developments and non-residential because there's no impact. A commercial business doesn't generate a need for park space. So we can't charge them an impact fee. So I hope that kind of makes sense for where those are coming from. I'm talking super fast, so I'll
They still
stop.
have it's a separate trail impact fee.
Trail is separate. Trail
Right.
impact fee is $450 currently. That could also probably use a relook to make sure it's still in alignment with the community's needs. And we established those through a study.
Yeah.
So we recently did an impact fee and rate study for water and wastewater to help identify the need for those changes. A similar study would be needed for roads, for park and trail, and all of our impacts, to make sure that we're not assessing more than we should be for the need. Keep that rough proportionality where it should be.
Can you kind of explain what the impact fee, so like any development, the trail impact fee that was collected for any new development, where exactly does that go?
Great question. So when the town collects impact fees, following all the state rules, there's a rule for everything. When we collect an impact fee, it goes into the trails would go into the general fund, and then there's an earmarked reserve. This is the trail impact fee account. It might be part of the overall general fund, but it's accounted separately, so we know how much is in there.
Yeah.
But under state law, those fees collected have to go into an interest-bearing account, and they sit until you use it for a qualified expense. So when we collect $450 per residential lot in town, that money is not paying for playground equipment. It's not paying for roads. It can't be used for water. It can only be used for trails. So it sits until we have the project that is fee eligible. It goes through this group for recommendations, goes through our board for approval, budgeted, and we bid that work out, design, construct, and that's when it gets paid out.
Is that something then that we would know at the end of a year, what our amount is that sits in that account? Or, and maybe that's something you guys have already discussed, but when would our board know? Hey, we have this amount of money, we need to start thinking about how we're gonna spend it or what we're gonna put it towards.
Or trail improvements? or-
Yes.
Can you kind of
Yeah,
explain that?
trail expansion and
Let
things.
me,
Yeah.
let me just say something real quick. Just, this isn't just an advisory board, so it isn't you guys going out and saying, let's spend the money on.
Right.
It's a collaborative effort of understanding, mostly we'll identify a lot of things, hopefully with the Park and Trail Master Plan. Identifying things in the correct way and then utilizing those funds and then going to the board and saying, this is what is proposed for the use of this funds. How do we, as a board, feel about this? Let's make sure we're taking the right channels. And then it'll return back to Parks and Rec, planning, making sure it's all aligned, and then it goes to the Board of Trustees.
Such as when we're like, hey, can we take this piece of trail that's not concrete and improving it, right? If we recommend that to the board.
Like converting a soft trail to a
Yeah.
paved trail.
Yeah.
Somewhat, although we do also have the opportunity, and we have it, because it's a town budget, not my budget, but the Parks and Rec budget, the park side of the park side of the department budget does have that as an operational cost that comes out of the general fund. Outside of that is
Oh,
more of
outside
a
of
just
that, okay.
ongoing operational costs.
Yeah.
But it isn't to say that we couldn't, if we identified a large enough space that we wanted to say, hey, we're trying to connect new community with an
Yeah.
older community, connect our trails, or once the regional trail comes up, if we need to go ahead and make a large sum of purchase through our land that we purchase and say, now we want to connect the trail, here's
Yeah.
our addition to that.
Yeah.
Does that make?
It
does that
is,
connect
and
again?
I'll throw a little bit more at that conversation too, and I'll use like a specific example. Or not a specific geographical example, but a case type. Following the soft trail component, it could be impact fee eligible. It also might not be, as Billy pointed out, it could be operational that, you know, we've always maintained this trail, but we need to upgrade it to something different. It could be impact fee eligible if we say, gosh, there's so many more people using this soft trail that it just turns into mud and we can't maintain it anymore. So the impact is, gosh, we've got to make a surface that can sustain that volume of traffic.
Right.
And then you get into, is it 40 feet of sidewalk that only serves one neighborhood? That might not be impact fee eligible because it has to be community-wide benefit. Versus, gosh, we need to fix that, and that's gonna have to come out of operating budget. So those are some kind of just case types that we as a staff have to evaluate and recommend to the board for all the projects that we do. How are we going to fund it? How big is the project? Is it coming from here or there? Is it eligible? Do we meet all the criteria? We get to do all the fun behind the scenes stuff. The other thing I'll throw at this conversation is most of the time, well, let me take a step back. there's never enough money. There's never enough money to build what we wanna build. And so most of the time, these impact fees, the most effective use of them is we've identified the bigger project, we know what we wanna build. We're going to use this funding, I'm using this sheet of paper as if it's real money. We'll use impact fee funds to make the matching requirements on a grant application that can leverage more dollars to pay for that bigger impact.
Right.
I'm currently working with our Public Works and Engineering Division to apply for a $2 million design and planning grant for I-25 interchange. And we're proposing to use impact fee money for the matching requirement of that. That's a $400,000 match if we get the full amount. We would be looking to use impact fee money to help leverage that bigger dollar amount.
Thank you.
You bet.
It gets confusing.
It can, and fortunately, we've got really smart people like Billy to tell us what to do with these things. We do.
Yeah, cause I'm the one talking all night tonight. Yeah, this is my go-to, yeah. Filibustered straight up.
So anyhow, I don't wanna dwell on this, but I wanted to put something in your hands too, for you to kind of think about that, and staff thinks about these things and more. We do have a great staff to really make the best use of the funds available for all of our projects. But I'm a big proponent of, it's gotta start with the project. You gotta know what you want. Where are we gonna put it? How are we gonna get that done? How do we pay for it? It's usually the last piece, as opposed to how much money do we have? What can we do with it? I try to always think, where do we wanna be? How do we find a path to get there?
And it has to be budgeted too.
Right.
Right, so it has to be in the budget in addition to everything,
Yeah.
so.
Competes with all the other priorities.
Right.
Yep. So I can go all night. I'm happy to, as long as you want me to, but I'll stand for any questions.
We have an agenda. If you want Cody to stick around, we can vote to cancel off E through F or whatever we have on.
Do we have any questions for Cody from this one?
I
A
don't,
lot of information, but thank you.
It's
Good.
super interesting.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here.
Of course.
Yeah.
Does the town have a like height limit on new buildings?
It does. It depends on which zone district it's in.
So what would the rec center or community center qualify as? How big would
Um,
that be there?
For civic buildings, it would probably be, I think 45 feet is typically where industrial and civic type buildings cap out. Obviously, I'm thinking of like gymnasium, and, you know, racquetball courts or whatever the right design is, needs that extra elevation. I think it would fit within the 45-foot height limitation. If it didn't, there are a couple different tools in the toolbox to look at. How do we make the project fit the needs that it needs to have?
Yeah, I'd say high school gyms are what, 35, 40, somewhere in there.
Typically, yeah.
I want you blocking my view either. I got a lot of stuff. going on right there.
Oh my God.
no, we're gonna build the biggest swirly outdoor slide. It's gonna be obnoxious. Just kidding.
Oh, no.
Blocking it right in there.
We think
Trustee Daly, you had a question or do you have comments?
I do have a question for like, for example, for a master plan for parks, trails, rec, whatever the case would be, that would probably go over the financial impact of maybe determine what may or may not be determined with impact fees. Would that be part of that component if there was for a master plan?
It could be, but I think it depends on what type of a study you're doing.
Mhm.
And I'll relate this to transportation, which we're tackling later this year, and will be longer than, you know, a couple months, but starting later this year. We're looking at transportation as a town-wide transportation and mobility master plan.
Uh-huh.
And we're including so what we'll do is we'll capture, these are the projects that are likely anticipated, some planning level cost estimates for what those would cost to build. And a prioritization for which ones are likely to be built in what time frame.
Right.
That identifies how much funding we think we need, and we'll use that data as a financial analysis to inform an impact fee study.
Okay, so I asked that question as a leading question of if and when we do our parks master plan, I would hope that we would prioritize those type of impact fee determining or informing type components to make sure that within that plan itself, it also gives us the information to reassess any impact fees. So I asked that question, but that's what I wanted to say.
Right.
But
I tend to agree with you, trustee, and that's certainly something that, I'll be helping with the park and trail master plan as needed. I don't think that I'm the lead. I think Billy is the lead, and you guys are gonna be one of the primary stakeholders. We'll co-lead it.
Doomed.
But
Doomed.
I don't see a lot of the financial funding pieces,
Yeah.
tied to the park, and trail master plans. Those are usually more programmatic and geographic map data type of specific.
Okay,
But I think in parallel or right behind that could be a specific financial study to tackle the impact fee component that you just identified.
okay. I think it'd be a shame to go through and say, these are all the things that we need, but then not have the information to know how we're paying for it.
Right.
So I just want to plant that seed. So if we have the opportunity to weigh in on that, because I know impact fees have come up many, many, many times within this group with
Yeah.
multiple people. So just something to consider as a input.
And going along the lines of how, the planning department moves forward is, what is the plan? Well, let's get the master plan, and then how do we fund it? Well, then we'll take an impact
Right.
fee study afterwards and
Mhm.
see. Cause it's hard to, increase impact fees if we, maybe we do. That regional park gets built out, well, we don't know that. Do we know the amount of money that we're gonna need or what it's gonna look like? But we need to know exactly what we're gonna have in front of
Right.
us first
Good
before we
first
go
step.
on the back end and
Yeah.
say, how much are we
Yeah.
gonna have to raise fees or not?
Yeah, I just
And-
don't want to wait years and years and years for that next step.
Right.
With new
Disagree.
developments coming in, it
Right.
would
Don't
seem like
disagree.
it would be
Yeah.
important to get going.
Yeah, absolutely.
Are these impact fees only coming through newly built homes? Or if you built a park on a previously existing neighborhood, does that neighborhood take the hit essentially?
Good question, Joe. So impact fees, as I mentioned before, it's a one-time charge and it's collected with building permit.
Got it.
So, and the point there is homes that were built 100 years ago, they didn't need a rec center. They're gonna pay for a portion of that through property taxes, utility fee, or not utility, but recreation fees, things like that.
Right.
So there's more than one funding source. Impact fees rarely pay for everything. They usually pay for an increment, and that's what they're designed to do. Property taxes, retail sales tax,
I was
other
just saying,
things.
there's a percentage of sales
Yeah.
tax that goes directly to both public works and parks.
So there are multiple funding sources.
Roads directly,
Roads and
public
parks,
work,
yeah.
I just want to say public works, but streets and
Yeah.
parks.
Yeah,
Yeah, so it's a one-time collection. It occurs at the time of building permit, so any new home is paying the then current impact fees charged to that. Or at that time, anything that's already in place, you cannot, by law, you cannot go backwards and charge them additional impact fees.
we also have to keep in mind too, that impact fees aren't just like extra free money that developers want to just pay extra for. Those costs are always passed down to the person buying that home. So as we increase impact fees, that's why it's so important. That has to be like proven that that is required and needed for the community. Because it does decrease affordability, right, of people buying those homes. That cost is directly passed on to them. It's not just like for good measure, I'm gonna spend some more money on parks and trails. So there's like two sides to all these stories, but I mean, if that's what's required and validated to be what the town needs in order to maintain, certain services or features, then it makes sense. But if it's not, then there's no reason to increase the cost of homes for no reason. So I guess that's why this is all balanced out, but I have to put that up there too, because affordability is also very important to me.
It is, yeah. The end user's paying for it eventually.
Yep.
Any more
Well,
questions
yeah.
for Cody?
These are good.
You guys have been very
That was
gracious to let
great.
me keep rambling. If you have other questions that come up after this, feel free to shoot those over to Billy. Reach out to me directly, it's fine also. But
No, of course.
I do want to make sure you guys get any questions that you have answered, so feel free to reach out through me, through Billy, however you see, catch me at the grocery store, whatever it is. Just let me know. I live in town, so I'm happy to help anytime.
Awesome.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Cody.
Thank
It's
you.
really helpful
Yeah.
and exciting.
I hope it's exciting. I tried to generate some excitement.
Oh, can we take two 5-minute break real quick, process the information, we can go down the rest of the agenda.
Sure.
You two are neighbors.
I know, yeah, we are.
Okay, good enough. Okay.
Okay, so talking about the WCP Memorial update, I think for tonight, we're going to move through that one so that we can talk more about it at the next meeting and bring more information at that point in time, if that's okay with everybody.
Yeah, for on my end, it'll be a really strong push to try to generate cost before that next meeting, and then that'll associate maybe outside of meetings, but maybe a little talk more about fundraising and stuff like that. And we'll have, I think, at least, Sarah, myself, Laurel, and if anybody else wants to join, we could possibly do that. But in between now and then, just kind of sitting down, getting cost, and then talking about how we move forward with a funding piece so that we can actually start riding that horse,
Yes,
get that going.
yes. And we want to be able to have everything ready. Yeah,
Ready for Mingle on Main in November.
yes.
Oh, good.
So
Okay.
Around the veterans,
Yeah.
around
Yep.
Veterans Day.
Yes,
And what day is Mingle on Main?
The third Friday of every month.
Okay, so we would potentially have 2 meetings before then, official meetings, and we'll try to do one in between so that we can kind of get on the same page. Maybe just unofficially, just a quick chat. So we'll either set that up or. see
yeah,
if
I'm
we
hoping we can get everything super organized,
Yeah.
present it to everybody at the next meeting in October, and then we'll be ready to go for
Yeah.
November.
That is aligned to the Friends of Wellington. Do you want to talk about, can we talk about that quickly? 'Cause
That'll
that's-
be
Well, so that's the 501c3.
agenda F.
Okay.
Stay on course here.
Sarah, is that okay with you? We're just trying to get through some of this, but
Yep.
I know we've kind of talked about.
Totally works for me.
We're super excited though. Sarah's been working on getting that focus for the November Mingle on Main going, which it's pretty cool. So thank you.
Generate some money towards the project.
Yes. So next would be the ADA doc update. I know we're all really excited about this one.
Yeah, the closest I have for a date is the first week in October. We should be receiving the doc. I haven't got a specific date yet, but it was put to me by the manufacturer that it should be here by the first week of October. That being said, we still have to put it together, which really is only going to take about a day from what I've been told. The guy that does it, as I've expressed, can pretty much guarantee with 4 people, we can put it together in a day. The parks crew and Eric and I will get that taken care of. I know we discussed possibly October 6th as the event that won't conflict with anything from Spargetoberfest. That is a Sunday, so that we're outside of programming. The other consideration for that is just potentially not having the concrete done. If we get the dock in that week, there's no way we're gonna get a concrete contractor to come in, do the bike fix station. Hopefully, and I'll provide this in my updates, but there's more concrete that I need this concrete contractor, flat work contractor to do across town. So I just don't see the feasibility. And if we push that event off, if we can get the dock that week, can get it installed, what we'll try to do is get more soft trail material. It'll basically be temporary, but we'll get it in place so that it's ADA compliant, with the idea that we'll tell the public this is going to be a full concrete pad. There's just no way to do it in our timeline, plus being able to have an event, maybe get fish in from the Colorado Parks and Wildlife for a second stock, and still have it within fishing season. It's just gonna push us to November, and then you don't do a fishing event. So I think that would be the last weekend we could possibly do something like that. If it does get pushed, we'll have to reimagine kind of what that first event is. It might be a ribbon cutting and a casting, but who knows what the weather is in November. So the ultimate goal would be to try to get it on that 6th. That also being said, it's a short timeline. So I'm gonna need to basically keep you guys up to date on when that date is that it comes in. It comes in on Friday the 4th, but good luck. But if it comes in on Monday or Tuesday, Wednesday, then we're good. But the manufacturer will drive it directly up from Denver on a trailer, and we'll put it together. And anybody that wants to be involved, surely.
Yeah.
I think at some point, too many hands might be too much, but if you wanna come and check it out, I think that's
Mhm.
all, that'll be great. But I will keep you up to date, cause it will be in between meetings. So it'll all have to be email chain and, come on over. Bless you.
Was there any ideas that other people had to make this a fun event and make it special? We've
Yep.
done some, we had some jokes, about the different trucks we could have there. We've talked about, cutting fishing line instead of a ribbon. Like, did you guys have some ideas that you wanted to add to this so that as it comes up?
I think from the recreation side, we probably wouldn't do like a full park and play, but we would bring some yard games and stuff like that just to have out. Probably no inflatables that time of year unless we know it's gonna happen and we're all on top of it and we get a wild hair. Sundays may be a little bit difficult for us to get people because a lot of our recreation staff is in on Saturday, so we'll see what we can come up with. We always rally, but that from our standpoint, we will have some stuff there, but maybe not stuff that we have to fully staff and have someone
people stand up.
situated, right? So we're talking about like bags and blue
Blocks.
blocks and the big Jenga and stuff like that.
I mean, it's fall, it's
Yeah.
October, Halloween, I don't know. Can we do some kind of dress up? So I don't know. I'm not coming up with brilliant ideas. but-
Apple bobbin, corn boil.
Apple Apple bobbin in the pond?
There it is.
There you go.
Oh, yeah, the first catch.
Yeah, first cast.
Is it our
Yeah.
sign? I think that includes Bobby.
Yeah. Yeah, any other ideas? If we wanna throw them out there now or just kinda,
We'll send an email out
Yeah.
Nikki, and ask everybody again, if there's anything that you
yeah,
want added.
we'll put a general outline of what we wanna see done and, this is also, the town knows about it, I guess I should say the leadership knows about it, so it's on marketing radar as well as Kelly's radar to help out in any way once we know the date. So we'll have more than just this group to kind of, since it's gonna be so compact, to get all hands on deck to get what we can. But if we wanna do something like a food truck, I would suggest that this group kind of goes out and finds it, although it's really hard to call a food truck and be like, hey, potentially, would you like to maybe be? So,
Yeah.
We talked about potentially on the hook.
yeah,
Mhm.
Yeah.
they're a little hard to
Could
get a hold of,
ask.
but
They
who
might
knows?
What about slurps? No one's happy with it?
Throw it
No,
all out
well,
there.
she-
I think we're
so
just
no-
throwing it all out there.
Or like pulling her food truck over, cause I don't think she does that anymore. She
No,
has
it's a
a food truck.
stationary in the spot, but maybe some sort of booth, cause I know she does a lot of pre-made, like sandwiches,
Wow.
Burritos,
She
soup.
does the
that's cold.
charcuterie stuff too.
Yeah,
Mhm.
or like chili or something like that, since it's gonna be a little bit colder in November.
Mhm.
What time were you
Could also
thinking
be
that event would take place?
We would probably do like an 11 o'clock,
11 o'clock.
something like that. I
Okay.
think just knowing give or take a month from now, 3 weeks from now, that,
It's
Um, yeah,
Yeah.
it's soon, yes, absolutely. And it's also, even the mornings are pretty crisp now until about 9 or 10 o'clock. So I think an 11 o'clock is good to get people out there. Gives people enough time for accommodations for anybody that would need to
So
get there.
I guess, playing the other devil's advocate a little bit, it's hard to envision planning, from a planning perspective, it's hard to envision planning something when we have no idea if the dock's actually gonna be in
Oh,
at that
absolutely.
time. Which makes me a little. I don't know, I'm struggling with that a little
Valid.
bit of how do we plan for an event if we don't even know if the dock's gonna be here? Because then
There's-
you're pulling, I think we have to look at what can we do that still celebrates this event, but if the dock doesn't come in time and we're not gonna have it up, then we're not backtracking on businesses who might have prepared
Oh,
for it,
absolutely.
or,
That's why I need a firm date from them.
Yeah,
And once we get that, then we can plan or not.
did they tell you how soon you would have the firm date? You might have said that, and I missed it.
No,
Okay,
the last I got was last Friday was the manufacturing should be ready to be delivered up here the first week. There's no exact date on that. So
Would be pushing it 1 week just make it safer and more reliable.
Isn't
The
that,
13th.
is that Spargetoberfest or not?
Tuesday is the gravel race. For Spargetoberfest. Or it's Tuesday, Saturday is.
Okay.
Saturday the 5th or Saturday the 12th?
12,
So if we
In
did a
October.
Sunday,
yes.
yeah,
Right.
So, right?
Mhm.
And then
what we,
Sunday, the
we're not
13th.
gonna. Oh, yeah, for building the dock, yeah,
You're gone, right?
yeah,
Oh, is that why that one was off?
yeah,
I can't remember, okay.
yeah, so 6th or 2 weeks after
20th.
that, yeah.
Mhm.
But I'll give you updates. If we can't make it work in that time frame, we can't make it work.
Okay.
It's just, it would be great to get it in and have people be able to fish before it gets too cold. And I don't know when they would stock it, you know, if they're gonna stock it that late. They said they would do a fall stock, so.
I mean, is it possible to push it to the spring? Like, I know that's not our ideal, but
Mhm.
we've got a winter window that we, you know, if we can't do it in October, could we do a launch?
But we could potentially do the ribbon cutting at next year's, fishing derby.
Yeah.
Mhm. That's a good idea too.
I also think you could do a ribbon cutting, you know, on, if we can get it done by that Sunday, you could do a ribbon cutting and then, you know, we do a whole big thing with the fishing derby, or did you want them at the same time? Cause it seems silly to have a ribbon cutting and nothing else with it.
A hope would be that we could still have the event this year, right? Like kind of spreading out the PROST events and really letting people know who we are and the progress that we're making, right? So we want people to know PROST exists because we're getting things done, right?
Yeah.
And so by having that event and it's spread out, to me, it's really important, just showing that we are representing our community.
It is also nice because it is tied to capital money.
Mhm.
And
Oh,
grant funding
sure.
that, you know, so we got the board to agree to do the disc golf and the dog park in lieu of the money that we saved on the grant. So trying to get the promotion out there, you know, just the optics of, hey,
Yeah.
we'll put this in, we'll wait till next year. There's your suggestion.
What's the problem with going the 20th?
There is no problem.
Giving you time.
Yeah.
I mean, I know we're up against weather, but it's
Yeah.
fall, you know,
Yeah.
I mean, what's it gonna get? A little
Yeah.
chilly?
And I guess
Yeah.
with the stocking, my idea is just, if the Department of Wildlife doesn't want to stock it that close to the event, then just stock it and whatever's there. It's not a big deal. I think the idea for the fish is the ecology anyways, right? I mean, we're not doing a full on fishing derby,
Yes.
but we would hope that people will come and fish
Yeah.
that day.
Mhm.
But I'm fine with earmarking the 20th.
Do we have
Do we
control
have anything
on
on
water
that?
levels of when it's gonna be, doesn't it get brought down?
We have no more water rights this year. But our irrigating season is drastically decreasing, so the water level should just,
Should be pretty.
I mean, a lot of it's evaporation and irrigation, but should have enough to stay. Yeah, we did our last water pull 2 weeks ago. I don't know if anybody was there, or, yeah, I think it was 2 weeks ago on a Thursday. The ponds were super full. That was our last pull.
Turn it to a polar plunge.
We could do that too.
That's a good idea.
Jump in
That's
to
what-
the 6 foot deep, yeah. Get to the polar plunge.
Stuck in the mud down there.
If a trustee's gonna go in a dunk tank, a trustee can do the polar plunge.
That'd be
Oh,
great.
okay, so Saturday, the 19th is available. That's our first day without programming, so we could do a Saturday, which will,
Yeah.
we'll pull more people and
Yeah.
bring people back. We'll have to double check, since we don't have programming, PSD's schedule, make sure they don't have anything crazy, cause they do crazy
I
stuff,
think
but.
their school is off 17th and 18th of October, just FYI. Or Rice is.
Yep, that's cool.
And that's before we go to CPRA, right, the week,
That means
weekend
nobody.
before, so that's,
We don't go to the following.
oh, right. Okay.
Thursday must just be.
But that, we can shoot for concrete being done, the bike station. being
Sure,
done,
sure,
Everything being
sure.
ready
Yeah.
to go, if we're saying the
That's,
19th.
I like that plan.
Like it.
I think it
wanna
gives
say the
us
19th.
time too.
Really plan.
Mhm.
Okay,
Uh,
Let's do it.
You have a for sure day.
earmarked, 19th.
Okay.
Cool.
Just because I know we do need to keep going.
Yep.
We have about 5 minutes left on our agenda or time frame that we
Try to set.
are trying to set. So park updates, so we talked about, intent of why kind of everybody is taking on a park, right? Sorry. So we talked about the intent, right, is to review the facility, the equipment, the landscaping, report any necessary needs to Billy, right? So, typically, parks is great. The Parks Department takes care of all this stuff, right? They go and they check and they're on top of it. But as we review a park, you know, these are the things we're looking for. And if something needs to be immediately addressed, right, you guys are calling it in. This could include vandalism, you know, dead trees. One time all the fish in the ponds died. This was like 6 years ago. The whole pond was full of dead fish. So deceased wildlife, right? We're reporting that, any broken equipment, right? Just anything we can help out for noticing. And then also the intent is really to review how the park's being used and how we can make it better. Do we need more shade? Do we need more tables? Do we need better ADA accessibility? Do we need, how's it being used? Is it being used by 4-H and they need more tables? Is it being used by the Girl Scouts? Is it being used for more pickleball? Whatever it is, we're observing how it's being used and how we can make improvements for the residents and the people that use the park. And so hopefully we could potentially say, hey, you know, I'm Laurelyn with the PROST board, and do you have any suggestions on how we could make this particular park any better? And then we're bringing it back to the group each month, and then we can add it to our PROST priorities as we're having these conversations of how we can make things better. And then we can decipher where to put it.
Yep.
Billy and I had a conversation about kind of realigning what everybody's parks were. Had a talk with Joe because I knew he he's in Buffalo Creek, so it's very close to Wellington Community Park. He said, you know, gosh, that would be a really good one for me because I'm right there and I use it. So then I asked Robert about parks, and so I potentially would take Harvest Village Park. Most people would stay where they were. Robert, though, that would have you at Library and Centennial, if that's okay, but they're really kind of intertwined. And then Sarah, that would put you with Trails, and Knowles Linear, which is where the
I just had to- I
thank you.
just had to ask. 'Cause I
Yes.
didn't know.
Yes,
Yep.
Okay.
yes.
Yeah.
I know you came to us with a passion about trails, and so if that's okay with you, but if anybody doesn't like this, like, discuss
Yeah,
it, talk
so
it, move it.
Basically
a
the trail
suggestion.
from Reagan to the underpass,
Mhm.
and then that will encompass the new multi-use disc golf, foot golf course.
Okay.
Are we okay with this, or?
I am.
Okay, great. So then moving on, talking about the Friends of Wellington. Wellington Parks, sorry.
Nope.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
so Rebecca pulled together a couple of us who had expressed interest in supporting the fundraising efforts and introduced us to Dan Sapien, who is legal. Sapienta, thank you.
It's okay.
I knew I was not gonna get that right. So we had a call with him several weeks ago, and he sort of outlined, we gave him a proposal for what we were thinking. He gave us some recommendations around, do we keep it with PROST? Do we keep it with WCP? Do we have it as a separate entity? And his recommendation is that it should be a separate board and separate entity from PROST. So that opens the door for fundraising for potentially projects outside of what PROST is doing, but the immediate focus for us obviously would be to leverage it for the WCP Memorial. So he needed a point of contact, which I volunteered for, which is just being sort of the centralized, like my address, my information for mailing, all of that, my office address, which is my home address. He recommended that we pull together a board, so we do need at least 3 to 5 members of the board. So myself, Rebecca, and Sarah have volunteered. John, we've not gotten confirmation for John, but he was on our
He was
original.
initially interested, so
Yeah,
we'll talk to him some more.
so we don't have a formalized board yet, meaning president, vice president, we don't have those roles defined, but that's something that we can work towards. So as of right now, we have given him the information he needs to be able to submit the 501c3 to get that secure. The next steps will be that we need a bank. We need a banking account to be able to have a place to put the money. So that will be the next step. Once he files and we get the entity created, then we'll be able to go to the bank and secure an account, and then we'll have an account available. So. what am I missing?
I'm really excited that Dan's working on it. Dan is the town attorney, so he knows everything about the town. A concern in the past was advisory boards kind of acting on behalf of the town, entering contracts, accepting money, participating in things that are outside of our either purchasing power or like within the policies of the town of Wellington, which puts those groups at risk, puts the town at risk. Dan is the town attorney, so that's why I think his advice was really helpful for this kind of thing. So I won't speak on his behalf, but all of his recommendations surrounded making sure that the fundraising entity of all things fundraising, even planning for fundraising, accepting dollars, everything like that is a function outside of an advisory board, completely separate.
Yeah.
So the project and purpose and cost could absolutely be something that's coordinated by PROST, but anything that's in the efforts of fundraising should occur through a nonprofit. Whether those board members are the same or not, it doesn't matter. He said we could actually write into the bylaws that require that they're the same, but really that kind of gets muddy at that point, because if you leave PROST, would you not be allowed to be part of that board? So the board for the nonprofit determines their own bylaws. It's part of becoming a nonprofit, right? So how many members, what they're working on, everything associated with their bylaws. So, and the reason why this is important to me is I just want to make sure that this group stays safe and functional, and doesn't have any questions or concerns or risks, right, associated with it. So that's why I sought out some additional information from Dan. Also personally asked him for a lot of conflict of interest things if I was acting
As a
outside of my
Trustee,
role or anything like that. Everything looks really crystal clear there, so that's fine. His recommendation was that the fundraising committee not exist within PROST. Instead, that would be kind of farmed out to the nonprofit, which could be, again, the same exact people doing the same exact things, but operating within the nonprofit.
Okay.
So that was the recommendations. That's what we've been pursuing. Oh, beyond forming the nonprofit, it won't be tax deductible until those additional steps are taken. I think the wait is like between 3 and 6 months at this point. So any donations won't necessarily be tax deductible until that's been completed, but I think that's all the highlights.
Just a quick question then, when we have the fundraising that's come through the town into, the rec department where there's that button, you can choose to donate.
Yep.
How do we differentiate those, or does that need
Those
to?
are town funds. We have a GL line set up within the town. The can't cross pollinate. We're the ones that accept the money as on behalf of the town donated to the
Perfect.
town.
Okay. And they would
Same thing.
spend the funds as well.
Yes,
Yeah.
when we spend the funds. So the same thing with, when we get donations, such as when Dennis granted us, the donation from, the Legion, that went directly into that same GL line because it was specific for the WCP Veterans Plaza. And there's a GL line specifically for that. So when we're taking silent auction donations or any donations like on the recreation website, the same thing for like helmets, people
Yeah.
can donate money for helmets and we specifically have to use that for helmets or sports gear, safety gears, how it's set up. So similar to that. So those are very separate situations. My question kind of along those same lines is when we're marketing certain pieces for the town, can we cross-pollinate marketing for the use? Can you then use that? And I guess that might be a question for Dan, because if we're putting something up on the website, like, hey, we're moving earth, here's the QR code for the donations that the town is receiving directly for that. are you allowed to use that marketing too? And I think we need to make that very clear as well.
Yeah.
If the 501c3 has to just completely come up with their own space,
Yeah.
for marketing and promotional stuff.
All good questions. I think that, if you think about it and like look historically, like any kind of nonprofit relationship with the town, and there's been a lot of like supportive behaviors on both sides between nonprofits and from the town. So I think it'd be nice to have a very clear picture of what that looks
Mhm.
like. But I mean, historically, I've seen a lot of support from both directions for nonprofits. supporting
State
town.
routes
Yeah.
to
Yeah,
schools, I
exactly,
mean,
yeah.
look what we do with them, and that they get the grant, we help with the grant, but then
Right.
they donate the bike racks to us as
Yeah.
part of the grant funding, and procuring those was all on them.
Exactly,
grant.
exactly. So same kind of relationship there. They have actual memorandum of agreement sometimes and other things, so we'd have to go further. But
Mhm.
I mean, we have a good line of someone who might help us to understand those.
Yeah,
Those questions
absolutely.
better, so that's good. But
Okay,
yeah, it would need to operate as a separate nonprofit.
Yeah.
And then kind of like, I don't know, we're talking about having a liaison to Kiwanis, liaison to Legion or whatever like that. I think it would operate like this. They just kind of have the insider view since they're so involved with those too. If all that sounds good, we'll carry on.
I think so.
Thank you to Jesse for
Yeah.
taking that on.
absolutely
thank you,
wonderful.
Jesse.
I
Like,
think-
here's a bunch of information, someone do it.
Thanks, Jesse.
Yeah, I think it's a really thoughtful process in the way that partnerships can work and leveraging your other community. All the things you guys do in the community outside of this is just very specific to town operations and what we're doing, but that is a way to kind of step outside and still help out, but
Absolutely.
get the word out too.
The nonprofit, since it operates outside of the town, doesn't have to be compliant to any purchasing policies or any policies of the town as well. So. That's another good note to have.
So we'll keep you guys posted as this progresses.
It's exciting.
Yeah, really cool.
Yeah,
So
it's
we can
good.
start fundraising and
Yeah.
start
Yes.
having a place to put all of this
Mhm.
money we're gonna bring in.
I mean, maybe like within a week,
Yeah,
potentially.
Which would be great as we head into the Mingle on Main.
Yes,
And getting all of that dialed in too.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Pretty cool.
I think that's great. Well,
Yep.
nice job.
Great.
I think that's it.
Future calendar.
Yeah, future calendar. Did you write down what we just talked about?
Yeah, no, but so Alexis wants to come back, right, and do a presentation, that had come to our last meeting. So she'll be on the agenda. We also had, we talked about I talked to Kevin, who is a past board member. And he has incredible ADA insight, so he would come talk to us about the parks and trails and accessing them, using the wheelchair. He's offered to bring in a wheelchair, so we can kind of experience some of that. He's willing to meet us wherever, but really kind of enlighten us. He came and talked to our board when he was a board member, but this has been probably about 4 years ago. So it's really great information to have, how we can make an improvement, right? Even if we're, what's the word? Compliant, it doesn't always mean we're doing good, right?
Mhm.
And so he has some really good insight into how we can make it better.
Great.
So he would come do a presentation.
Awesome.
We also have,
I would like to propose within the board, and we can have a discussion, but kind of I call it like an adjustment or a designation of board representation roles, and possibly understanding and making sure that everybody kind of has their space. And we have a chair set, we have a co-chair set, fundraising, we can talk about all that stuff and then vote on those things. The other thought that had been talked about in the past and brought up more recently is doing some sort of rotational, like you would be in your place for a year and then have the opportunity to maybe switch roles within to give other people opportunity. Or as a board, we just say, nope, you're doing a fantastic job at whatever it is your role is going to be. Just so that For multiple different reasons. One, for structural, organizational, impact, and just making sure that things are a little bit more succinct in between meetings. As well as, just giving new opportunity for growth within the board and, you know, when we have turnover, a lot of times I think sometimes, well, I should just say, sometimes I feel like newer members feel like they're just kind of stuck as a member. But if they're here for a year and their term is for a couple of years, they feel like they can make an impact after learning what we're doing and really grasping it. Maybe 6 months in, they're like, I would love to co-chair, or I would, you know, and if we don't set those rules and boundaries, I think we kind of just get stuck in coming to meetings and then, you know, moving forward on projects, but not necessarily following up. So multiple different impacts.
I love that idea.
So we will review the chair position, the co-chair position, secretary position, and then all of the other liaison and committee chair type positions.
Yeah. So that'll be on the next month's agenda.
Yes.
The other thing is, we're gonna need to, and this are probably voted on, more so than me just saying we need to move the meeting, but Eric and I will both be gone at the National Parks and Recreation Conference, that second Wednesday next month. So.
Where's that at?
Atlanta.
It actually works better for me to move it a week later.
Okay,
I don't have my phone.
So what does that put, October 16th?
Mhm.
yep,
I will not be there. Or available to call it.
I'm sorry, I keep doing that to you.
It is my elk hunt.
Oh,
Yeah.
good for you.
Oh, hey.
I hope you're not available. I may be with.
I was gonna say, maybe you are available. You went out, got it, got back.
That's
yeah.
Tagging out.
So
So-
feel free to have it, but I won't. I'll be
Are you gone that entire week?
up till Wednesday.
Up till that day?
The only thing I would want to say is I really want everybody at that meeting to talk about roles, to talk about future movement, and understanding that everybody does have a big part to play. But that's me.
I'm available the 23rd. I'm also not available the week before that.
We will not be, so we're going to the NRPA.
We're good the 23rd.
Are we?
Yeah.
Okay, that's the week before.
Yeah.
So National Park Conference is that week of the meeting, the week of the 9th. And then the last week of the month, right up until the 31st, when we come back for trick or treat down Main Street, is the Colorado Parks and Recreation Convention, and that's in Keystone.
And 23rd as well, so,
Oh, sorry.
Women, yep.
um,
Why is that on my
Wellington.
schedule? Sorry about-
Sorry, Aaron.
Sorry.
Unless we want to do it, did we say Thursday?
we could do Thursday, the 17th.
There's no school that day.
Oh, we'll just everybody bring their kids.
Actually, I could do the 17th. My husband will be home.
We can make that work.
That,
Yeah, I'll be fine with that.
Joe,
Yeah, works for me.
This space is currently reserved, but we can move them next door.
Or,
Basketball managers meeting.
or we could just take up Centennial. We could just be at our, maybe. Jesus.
I have a mayor's meeting at that time, but we could just make the mayor come.
yeah, Tommy has to
Is
go.
that at MSB?
Do it.
So he can at least dip in for a little bit to a PROST meeting
Yeah.
and then go up and,
we can do it.
okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so everybody know where the MSB is?
No, what do we?
Our municipal service building, just right down on Third Street across from Centennial Park. We will have
Didn't know
that.
the acronym was not cool enough to know.
Same time, 6.
Yes, we'll do 6 o'clock.
17th.
Is Centennial open on the 6th?
I hope so.
Well, you said this was, so I was hoping this was. Okay,
Yeah.
I realized I didn't ask if anybody had anything for their particular parks to bring to
Oh.
your attention.
he's got notes. Thank you.
Wrote it
I
down.
appreciate you.
I do not.
Okay. And that's fair, right? Like, we don't always have to have something. to talk about.
Gator skins for the ramp, that's the only thing that we talked about.
Yes. Will you text, well, in the meeting. Yes, thank you. I appreciate that. And yes,
Um,
just so you know, the field goal posts there are maintained by the rugby team, and they
Are janky.
are the ones that are supposed to be putting those and
Are they?
keeping those.
Are they, I mean, if they could.
Yeah.
It just looks horrible.
You know why?
I'm just saying, that's what, I'm just.
That is a semi-protein.
No, because we had to move those fields slightly last year.
Okay.
And they weren't willing to come out and do it before their rugby game. They didn't have anybody. So yours truly dug up all 4 of the concrete posts, remeasured and removed them.
You
and
put them in all.
dug them. No, one of the pieces of concrete broke at the bottom, so it's just like this tiny one, so it wasn't holding. I was like, well, this is not mine. This isn't mine to fix. I got them up before their rugby last
I'm
year.
just telling you what I
It
see. in
eventually
the park.
wiggled it. I understand that, but
Rugby guys
it is,
can't see
it
straight
is
anyways.
part of our agreement with them that if we're painting their fields and we're maintaining the field, that they need to come in and deal with their own posts because
Okay.
it's not part of our programming.
Okay,
It's an external program. It's
Yeah.
kind of like we deal with a contractor for
Yeah.
certain sports. So that is part of our agreement with them. So they should be doing that and it's been noted.
I noted.
But thank you.
And that
I
whole
appreciate it.
fence,
Just
I don't know if the
just gonna
whole
let you
fence
guys know.
is our baby
which,
or.
oh, the railroad fence? You're gonna
The one
stop
the kids
kids.
come
You're
through.
gonna stop all the kids coming. Yes.
I mean, is it a safety
I will
concern
note
that
that,
we should
yeah.
be? I
Yes.
mean,
I'll note that.
I got
It is a
stuff in there with my
safety concern,
backpack
but
on,
if-
so.
We close all that off. Yeah,
I've only used it one time.
and yes, we do need the court resurface and we talked about potentially holding off.
And
since
that's
it
on
was like-
2024 right now,
That's
should go to
a
25 maybe.
Budget.
Yeah, it turned into something that would need to be a CIP with just the assessments that we got.
Okay.
So I think we said 35 was the minimum. We got, the last one we got was $65,000 to redo that,
It's
so
just still on our priority as 24, and it's not gonna go 24.
most
Okay,
likely not, yep.
we'll move
that'll
it.
change. Thank you.
Got it.
Good noting. Well noted, thank you for your notes, duly noted.
Really noted.
So this will give everybody, if we do, we'll push the meeting back, this will give everybody a little bit more time to kind of check out their parks. One thing I do want to mention when we talk about the parks too is really keep an eye on the change of seasons too. I mean, you will note that less and less people are at the parks at the same amount of time. Obviously in the summer it's different, but just, the safety concerns change throughout the season. So if you're there and you see a constant spot for ice that maybe I'm not seeing or the parks crew isn't seeing, or, all the stuff changes. So just keep aware of the different seasons.
As we look at our trails, is there a reason nothing's lit? Is there, I mean, is that, I know there's 2 schools of thought. There's
Yeah.
one, it gets used at night if it's lit. 2 is, you want it lit for safety.
Yeah,
And I just wondered if there was a school of thought when putting a trail and no lights.
it's part of the issue when we have, when we absorb HOA, like Cody was saying, is we can recommend it. If it is coming to parks eventually, then we can absolutely mandate that. But some of the trails that were built before Cody
Mhm.
took his seat were not necessarily planned to become town amenities. And they were taken over by the town, such as Harvest Trail. So unfortunately, that wasn't like part of the plan. Now, the same thing with the connection over here at Saddleback. When they came in and said, we said, you have to have lighting. We
Yeah.
can't, we can tell them it's a standard for parks now.
Yeah.
But they don't have to abide by that. Unfortunately, they only have to take what it is for our recommendations. But that will never be an amenity, thanks to the rules that have been put in place by the new town codes. Since it's a pocket park, it will never become.
So you don't have a feeling either way of if we should do it or not?
We could absolutely put that on a CIP moving forward, and I think that'll probably come around in the Park and Trail Master Plan, but I think all trails should be lit.
Okay, that's what I was
Yeah,
just.
I agree.
Should be.
And the CIP for this year has lighting for Park Meadows for that reason, because Park Meadows is terribly lit on the west side over there. We're gonna save some money on that CIP project, and when the downtown, the Cleveland project starts, they're gonna pull out those solar lights, so then we're just gonna take them over there, so it'll save the town $15,000 worth of solar lights. It pushes that off a little bit, but it's also one of those things where when you have limited resources and you can save money in the general fund, we might as well do that since those are gonna be obsolete. Why not take the rest of those poles that are gonna be there, cause they're all gonna be updated anyways, and they're more trail lights anyways, they don't light downtown well
Yeah.
enough, so.
Mhm.
I'm in conversation with Public Works about using as many of those as possible, we don't know where that goes, but I got the okay to at least do 2 to 3 for Park Meadows.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
that's
great.
great.
Mhm. Will we have for the October meeting, will we have on the agenda discussing Mingle on Main? And
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, add that,
the plaza,
Yes.
that new plaza?
Everything else we just talked about should be pretty brief, so we should be able to fit
Yeah.
that in for sure.
yeah, and I'll get from Alexis what exactly she wants, it might not be a full presentation, she might just come and say she's chosen to a path to move forward and
Good.
we can just
Check in.
support her, just a check-in.
Do we have any announcements?
Yeah, let me just rattle through these. So I alluded to it earlier, but Eric and I are meeting with a Flatworks concrete contractor. Not only to talk about just the dock in Wellville. There are about 4 places other than that we've identified that we're hopefully gonna be able to use ADA money for, which is a separate budget. One of them will be taking Centennial Path that goes from the shelter out towards the skate park. The shelter in Centennial Park that kind of goes by the Public Works building basketball courts. That's been identified as non-ADA compliant because it goes transition from concrete to asphalt back to concrete where the basketball court is. So we're gonna see if we can get them to make that ADA accessible as well as fill in the rest of that area that's mulch right there. We also have the Harvest Trail has a spot where they brought in a load of concrete that clearly wasn't ready to be set, so. If you ever walk the Harvest Trail,
destroyed, yeah.
it's just bad concrete
that
that
fenced in
eventually went,
space.
yeah, by the lift station, exactly.
like a
We're
single
gonna
hole.
have them redo that, then Wellville, and then we're gonna see how much money that we can. Continue Wellville more than just the ADA dock area, if we can get at least the east pond. Soft trail moved to the side as a soft trail and get a concrete trail all the way around. Is that all we were gonna do with that ADA? Oh, and we might also, side note, the Park Meadows, ADA ramp isn't necessarily, it's not fully compliant because of the width that is necessary in the parking space that it is. Public Works is gonna do this, but they know that we're coming to do concrete work, so. I might just have them knock that out and do that while they're there. We'll see if that goes, and then the bike fix stations too. So that, Cody already hit on the No-Code Trail Summit. Bike racks, splash pad, last day of the splash pad is the 22nd on Sunday.
I've heard
Um,
gratitude that is still on, by the way, so I
Well,
don't know if it's later this year, is it, did we,
yeah, it's typically, it's always
Like
on
Labor Day,
Labor Day,
maybe.
but
yeah,
there's no reason for us to turn it off if it's still nice outside.
yeah.
The disc golf holes and everything that we have in that plan, in the contract is ordered. I don't have a delivery date on that, but I will get that from Avery Jenkins, who has that, so it should be, that is probably gonna be delivered in the next few weeks. So then we'll have to plan putting that in as well, but that'll be probably, November is when he says he has time to do that.
We can do it as a community build, right? In
It's
addition
gonna
to
be
all the
so
things?
cool. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And we'll sit on that if we all decide that maybe that goes in the spring. It is what it is there, but he kind of he's a course builder, so he has a time that he can get out here. And if it doesn't meet our timeline, it might get pushed off a little bit.
Mhm.
Weather typically in the last few years has been nice until December, so, trails, I think we talked plenty about trails today. And open spaces, which we don't have enough of.
Anything?
Anything for me?
Mm-mm.
Trustee Daly, do you have anything as our liaison?
You guys talked about safe routes already. Or bike fix, okay. The only other thing I have is you can come dunk me at Sparktoberfest at
Happening.
11:30 on Saturday.
Noon, market, you're 12 o'clock, right?
Who's noon?
Noon, aren't you at 12 o'clock in the booth?
I'm 11:30.
Don't show up at noon, you won't get to dunk Rebecca.
Yeah. And as soon as it's noon, I'm out.
No, Bennett's soccer game's at 10, sweet.
Yeah, and all my softball games are in the afternoon, so it's gonna work well. And then CSUC, oh my God,
Are you going?
It's a busy Saturday. It's a very busy Saturday.
that's a lot. Yes, so come dunk me for good cause.
Cool.
But, yeah, otherwise I don't have much else other than I'm open for any conversations or questions or anything, so. Let me know. Yes, sir.
I forgot recreation stuff.
Oh, okay. I thought you were gonna ask me a question. I was like, I
Nope.
don't know anything about that.
Winter registration has started. We're holding off on volleyball this year just to open for a little later. Basketball's happening. We're partnering with the Junior Nuggets again, which would be great. We're doing a different jersey design, so they'll get a different jersey this year, which is exciting. We are working on getting, so we lost our yoga instructor. We're working on getting a new format for that basically, and hoping to bring in other classes for that. Kind of took us a while where there's a lot of recruitments happening, so that'll be basically a like town staff member seasonal position for us, which would be really great because then we don't have to add an extra staff member to like monitor the activity. So that'll be nice. And
Ultimate Frisbee,
yeah, ultimate
Oh,
Frisbee
yeah.
tomorrow
tomorrow night.
night at WCP at the utility field, which is right there by the splash pad. So
Glow in the
come-
dark.
Come do that. Yeah, we got some glow in the dark discs to throw around.
That's fun.
So come have fun. Emma will be leading that, and we've got adult basketball, which
basketball.
has a team signed up already, so it's only 3v3. You only need two close friends to come play, so come play.
It's
And
co-ed,
yeah, no
no,
restrictions on any like gender requirements or anything like that, which is nice. So just invite whoever you want and look for dodgeball to come. So
multiple dodgeball events.
multiple
this year.
dodgeball events. So yeah, look for that to
Not
come.
on my team, don't play.
And indoor pickleball is open
Yeah.
as well for registration.
We're also
So, yeah.
discussing another run of the Night Beyond Limits for the turn of the year like we did it last year at the Boys and Girls Club. We've had to sit down with them as well as internally to start programming that. And then I thought there was one more thing. Oh, we're also trying to expand into I think in the next few weeks, we're gonna get a hold of the seniors when they're here as well and see what kind of programming we can support them with. We're in contact with Patty Garcia and Jenny Jones, who are the kind of the senior center liaisons for the town. So they're gonna kind of get us in and get us introduced, and then we can get a sit down with them and see how we can better support them. With Eric now assuming his new position, there's definitely some transition, although he's still very much heavily involved in everything he was before. But our recreation staff is really doing a strong push and moving forward with our goals of being much more ADA compliant and more equitable, as well as trying to reach out to the age groups. There's such a big gap that we don't span through our recreation programming, a lot of it to do with facilities, but also just staff time. They're doing an amazing job of being able to try to stretch themselves out to do that. So just thought I'd give them a quick shout out.
Yeah, they're doing awesome, especially as I like transition away from stuff. They're like, what else can you give us?
All the films.
Yeah, so that's going well.
So-
They're doing awesome.
I think our softball teams are playing in Wellington this weekend. Is that right?
No, there weren't enough. They've pushed hopefully to October 13th, I think. Yeah.
That might be hard for me. Okay. Congrats. Probably
congratulations.
officially celebrated that. Yay, Eric.
Congrats.
Thank you.
Only tried to fire him once since I hired him.
Oh my goodness. Any update on the maps?
Oh, I need to talk to Jerry about that. It was told to me that they would have them in October.
Okay.
I said that last meeting.
I'm just excited to see.
I know, so am I. So am I. I'll get, I don't know what his contract is for the drum, but he said that it's last week in September and then the turnaround.
Let us know when to go outside and do things.
That's right.
On a trail, just spelling
Just
something.
spray a bunch of Roundup in the grass.
I'll try to make sure my children don't get on that trampoline when you do that.
Wow. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, make sure my kids aren't jumping naked on the trampoline.
Yeah.
Oh, Lord.
Oh, my God.
That would be fun if we were in one of them though.
Do we have anything else before we adjourn? Great.
Good stuff, everybody. That was a lot of
It's fun.
information.
There's a lot. Thank you. I'm excited to have everybody here, and I know John couldn't join us tonight, but you know, I think we're just all really excited to have a full board and make some movement, and so thank you. It's good.
All right, meeting adjourned at 8:50.